Switzerland, Geography and Natural Wonders Introduction. The heart of Europe, Switzerland occupies a unique position in the heart of Europe, a landlocked nation where the continent's great mountain ranges converge with its most productive valleys. Covering 41,285 square kilometers, 15,940 square miles, this relatively small country punches far above its weight in terms of geographic diversity, natural beauty, and environmental significance. From the towering peaks of the Alps to the gentle rolling hills of the Mittelland, from glacial lakes to rushing rivers, Switzerland's landscape has shaped not only its physical character, but also its national identity, economy, and way of life. The country shares borders with 5 nations: Germany to the north, Austria and Liechtenstein to the east, Italy to the south, and France to the west. This central location has made Switzerland a crossroads of European culture, commerce, and communication for millennia. Yet despite its accessibility, the country's formidable mountain barriers have also allowed it to maintain a distinct identity and independence throughout its history. The 3 geographic regions Switzerland's territory can be divided into 3 distinct geographic regions, each with its own character, climate, and significance to the nation's story. The Alps. Switzerland's crown, the Alps dominate approximately 60% of Switzerland's territory, forming a massive arc across the southern and eastern portions of the country. These mountains are not merely a backdrop to Swiss life, but its defining feature, shaping everything from settlement patterns to economic activities, from military strategy to national mythology. The Swiss Alps contain some of Europe's most iconic peaks. The Matterhorn, rising 4,478 meters, 14,692 feet above sea level near Zermatt, has become perhaps the world's most recognizable mountain, its distinctive pyramid shape gracing countless photographs, chocolates, and advertisements. First climbed in 1865 by Edward Whymper's party, though 4 members died on the descent. The Matterhorn epitomizes both the majesty and danger of the high Alps. But the Matterhorn is just one of many spectacular peaks. The Monte Rosa Massif, along the Italian border, reaches 4,634 meters at the Duferspitze, making it Switzerland's highest point. The Dom, at 4,545 meters, holds the distinction of being the highest mountain entirely within Swiss territory. In the Bernese Oberland, the famous trio of the Eiger, 3,967 m, Mönch 4,107 m, and Jungfrau 4,158 m, creates one of the most dramatic mountain panoramas in the Alps. The north face of the Eiger, in particular, has gained legendary status among mountaineers as one of the most challenging and dangerous climbs in the world. The Swiss Alps are home to approximately 1,800 glaciers, though this number has been declining rapidly due to climate change. These rivers of ice have sculpted the landscape over millennia, carving out the deep valleys and creating the dramatic relief that characterizes the region. The Aletsch Glacier in the Valais, measuring over 23 kilometers in length, is the largest glacier in the Alps and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. However, like its counterparts across Switzerland, it has been retreating significantly. Since 1850, Swiss glaciers have lost approximately 60% of their volume, with the rate of loss accelerating in recent decades. The alpine environment creates distinct vertical zones of vegetation and climate. The valley floors, many lying between 400 and 800 meters above sea level, support agriculture and human settlement. Above these, mountain forests of spruce, fir, and larch extend to approximately 2,000 meters, providing crucial protection against avalanches and erosion. Beyond the tree line lies the alpine meadow zone, where traditional summer pastures, Alps support grazing cattle and produce the famous alpine cheeses. Higher still, only hardy alpine plants survive in the thin soil and harsh conditions, creating carpets of wildflowers in spring and summer. Finally, above 3,000 meters or so, permanent snow and ice dominate, though even these zones are increasingly affected by warming temperatures. The Mittelland, Switzerland's heartland, the Swiss Plateau, or Mittelland, occupies about 30% of the country's territory and holds roughly 2/3 of its population. This region of rolling hills and flat plains stretches from Lake Geneva in the southwest to Lake Constance in the northeast, sandwiched between the Alps to the south and the Jura Mountains to the north. The Mittelland averages 400 to 600 meters in elevation, with gentle hills and broad valleys created by glacial action during the ice ages. This relatively flat, fertile land has made it Switzerland's agricultural heartland and the center of its urban development. All of Switzerland's major cities, except Basel, lie in or near the Mittelland. Zurich, the country's largest city and financial center, Bern, the federal capital, Geneva, the international city, Lausanne, overlooking Lake Geneva, and Lucerne, where the Alps meet the plateau. The climate of the Mittelland is temperate, with warm summers and cold winters. Rainfall is distributed fairly evenly throughout the year, supporting both agriculture and the region's lush green appearance. The plateau's farms produce dairy products, grains, and vegetables, while orchards and vineyards thrive in favored locations, particularly along the lake shores where the water moderates temperatures. This region has been the core of Swiss settlement since Roman times. The relatively easy terrain allowed for the development of agriculture, trade routes, and eventually industry. Today, it remains the economic engine of the country, home to major corporations, universities, and research institutions. Yet even in the Mittelland, the Alps are never far away, visible on the southern horizon and exerting their influence on weather, water resources, and the Swiss imagination. The Jura, Switzerland's western rampart, the Jura Mountains form a crescent along Switzerland's northwestern border with France, occupying about 10% of the country's territory. These fold mountains, composed primarily of limestone, contrast sharply with the crystalline Alps. They reach elevations of 1,000 to 1,600 meters, with the highest point being Mont Tender at 1,679 meters. The Jura landscape is characterized by parallel ridges and valleys running generally southwest to northeast. The limestone geology creates distinctive karst features, underground caves, disappearing streams, and natural amphitheaters. The region's numerous springs and underground water systems have long been important water sources. Historically, the Jura has been home to Switzerland's watchmaking industry, which developed in these mountains in the 18th and 19th centuries. The long, dark winters and relatively isolated valleys made precision indoor work an ideal occupation. Towns like La Chaux-de-Fonds and Le Locle became world centers of horological expertise, a legacy that continues today. The Jura's forests, primarily beech and spruce, are more extensive than in many parts of Switzerland, covering the hills and providing both timber and recreational opportunities. The region's climate is somewhat harsher than the Mittelland, with colder winters and more precipitation, but the valleys support dairy farming and the production of famous cheeses like Gruyere and Comté on the French side. Rivers and lakes. Switzerland's liquid highways. Switzerland sits at the watershed of Europe, where precipitation falling in the Alps flows outward to 4 different seas: the North Sea, the Mediterranean, the Adriatic, and the Black Sea. This has earned Switzerland the nickname, the Water Tower of Europe. Major river systems. The Rhine is Switzerland's most important river, both historically and economically. Rising in the Alps of Graubünden, the Rhine flows north and west through Switzerland, forming much of the border with Austria and Liechtenstein, then continuing through Germany to the North Sea. The Rhine falls near Schaffhausen, while not particularly high at 23 meters, is Europe's largest waterfall by volume, a spectacular cascade that has been a tourist attraction for centuries. The Rhine Valley has served as a crucial transportation corridor since Roman times. Today, Basel, where the Rhine becomes navigable for large vessels, remains one of Europe's most important inland ports, despite being hundreds of kilometers from the sea. The river also provides substantial hydroelectric power and has been central to Switzerland's industrial development. The Rhône rises from the Rhône Glacier in the Valais, flows west through Lake Geneva, and continues through France to the Mediterranean. The Upper Rhône Valley in the Valais is one of Switzerland's driest and sunniest regions, famous for its vineyards and apricot orchards. Lake Geneva, fed and drained by the Rhône, has played a crucial role in moderating the climate of the Lake Geneva region and supporting its population and agriculture. The Inn River flows east from the Engadin Valley through Austria and eventually into the Danube, making it Switzerland's contribution to the Black Sea watershed. The Ticino flows south from the Alps into Lake Maggiore and then continues through Italy to the Po River and the Adriatic Sea. These rivers have shaped Swiss history in profound ways. They provided routes for trade and communication, power for industry, water for agriculture, and barriers for defense. Today, they remain central to Switzerland's economy and ecology, generating clean energy, supporting diverse ecosystems, and providing recreational opportunities. Switzerland's jeweled Lake Switzerland boasts approximately 1,500 lakes, ranging from small mountain tarns to large bodies of water shared with neighboring countries. These lakes are primarily of glacial origin, carved out by the massive ice sheets that covered much of Switzerland during the Ice Ages. Lake Geneva, Lac Léman, shared with France, is the largest lake in the Alps, covering 580 square kilometers, crescent-shaped and bordered by the Alps to the south and the Jura to the north. It has been a center of culture and commerce since pre-Roman times. Cities like Geneva, Lausanne, and Montreux line its shores, and the lake's moderating influence on climate supports the region's famous vineyards, particularly in the Lavoux region, a UNESCO World Heritage Site where terraced vineyards descend in steps to the water. Lake Constance Bodensee in northeastern Switzerland is shared among Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. This lake, fed by the Alpine Rhine, serves as an important ecological region and recreational area. The historic town of Stein am Rhein, where the Rhine exits Lake Constance, preserves remarkably well-preserved medieval architecture. Lake Maggiore extends from Switzerland's Ticino into Italy, bringing a Mediterranean character to Switzerland's southern valleys. The lake's shores enjoy a mild climate that supports palm trees, camellias, and other subtropical vegetation, creating a striking contrast with the snow-capped peaks visible in the distance. Lake Neuchâtel, Lake Zurich, Lake Lucerne, Vierwaldstättersee, Lake Thun, and Lake Brienz are among Switzerland's other major lakes. Each has played a role in the country's development and continues to be important for transportation, tourism, fishing, and water supply. Lake Lucerne, with its dramatic mountain setting and association with the William Tell legend, holds particular significance in Swiss national consciousness. These lakes serve multiple functions in modern Switzerland. They provide drinking water for millions, support diverse aquatic ecosystems, generate hydroelectric power, regulate climate, and offer countless recreational opportunities from swimming and sailing to fishing. They also serve as water quality indicators. Switzerland's strict environmental regulations have successfully restored many lakes that were polluted during the 20th century's rapid industrialization. Climate. Diversity in a small space. Switzerland's climate is as varied as its topography, with significant differences over short distances. The country lies in the temperate zone, but elevation, aspect, and regional factors create numerous microclimates. Regional climate variations. North of the Alps, the climate is temperate oceanic, influenced by Atlantic weather systems. This region experiences relatively moderate temperatures, with warm summers averaging 18 to 25 degrees C, 64 to 77 degrees F, and cold winters that can drop below freezing. Precipitation is fairly evenly distributed throughout the year, with slightly more in summer when thunderstorms are common. South of the Alps, in Ticino and parts of Graubünden, the climate takes on Mediterranean characteristics. Winters are milder, summers warmer and sunnier. This southern region receives more precipitation than the north, particularly in autumn and spring, but enjoys more sunshine overall. Palm trees, magnolias, and other subtropical plants thrive in the lower Ticino valleys. The high Alps experience an alpine climate, with short, cool summers and long, severe winters. Temperatures decrease approximately 0.6 degrees C for every 100 meters of elevation gain. At high elevations, snow can fall any month of the year, and winter temperatures regularly plunge well below freezing. However, alpine valleys can experience temperature inversions in winter, where cold air settles in the valleys while higher elevations remain warmer. The Valais, sheltered by high mountains on all sides, is Switzerland's driest region, receiving as little as 600 mm of precipitation annually in some locations. This continental climate features hot, dry summers and cold, clear winters, creating ideal conditions for vineyards and orchards. The Firhin phenomenon, one of Switzerland's most distinctive weather phenomena, is the Firhin, a warm, dry wind that descends from the mountains. This occurs when moist air rises on one side of a mountain range, loses its moisture as precipitation, and then descends on the leeward side, warming and drying as it descends. The Firhin can raise temperatures dramatically in a matter of hours, melting snow, creating fire danger, and reportedly affecting people's moods and health. The classic Firhin situation occurs with south winds crossing the Alps into northern Switzerland. Locations like Altdorf and Uri are famous for Firhin conditions. The phenomenon has been part of Swiss culture and consciousness for centuries, blamed for everything from headaches to increased accident rates, though scientific evidence for health effects remains debated. Climate change impacts Switzerland is experiencing climate change at approximately twice the global average rate. Since the late 19th century, average temperatures have increased by about 2 degrees C compared to roughly 1 degree C globally. This warming is having profound effects on the Swiss landscape. Glaciers are retreating dramatically. Some smaller glaciers have already disappeared entirely, and models predict that, without significant emission reductions, up to 90% of the remaining glacier volume could be lost by 2100. This has implications not just for Switzerland's iconic landscapes and tourism industry, but also for water resources, as glaciers serve as natural water storage, releasing meltwater during dry summer months when it's most needed. Permafrost is thawing at high elevations, destabilizing mountain slopes and increasing the risk of rockfalls and landslides. The timberline is moving higher, and plant and animal species are shifting their ranges upward, potentially leaving alpine specialists with nowhere to go. Snow depth and duration have decreased significantly at lower and middle elevations, posing challenges for winter tourism and changing ecosystems. Rain is increasingly falling instead of snow in shoulder seasons, altering runoff patterns and water availability. These changes are prompting Switzerland to take climate action seriously, with ambitious targets for emission reduction and adaptation strategies for dealing with unavoidable changes. Flora and fauna. Alpine biodiversity. Despite its small size and high human population density, Switzerland supports remarkable biodiversity, particularly in its alpine regions. Plant life. Switzerland's flora reflects its varied elevations and climates. Approximately 3,000 plant species grow in Switzerland, including around 200 species that are considered rare or endangered. The iconic Edelweiss Leontopodium nivelle, with its distinctive star-shaped white flowers, has become a symbol of Switzerland itself. This alpine plant grows at elevations of 1,800 to 3,000 meters, often in rocky, exposed locations. Though never truly common, it's less rare than its symbolic status might suggest, and is protected by law in many areas. Alpine meadows burst with color in spring and summer, displaying dozens of species adapted to short growing seasons and harsh conditions. Gentians, primulas, saxifrages, alpine roses, rhododendrons, and many others. These meadows are often the result of centuries of human management through grazing, creating a semi-natural ecosystem of great value. Switzerland's forests cover about 31% of the country, a proportion that has been increasing over the past century as marginal agricultural land reverts to woodland. Lower elevations feature mixed deciduous forests of beech, oak, and maple. Middle elevations are dominated by coniferous forests of spruce, fir, and pine. The upper forest zone near the tree line often consists of larch and stone pine, Arala pine, species adapted to harsh conditions. The Swiss National Park in the Engadin, established in 1914 as the first national park in the Alps, provides insight into how these forests develop without human intervention. Here, dead trees are left to decay, creating habitat for insects and fungi, and forest structure becomes more complex and diverse than in managed woodlands. Wildlife. Switzerland's wildlife includes species typical of Central European forests as well as specialized alpine fauna. Brown bears, once common, were hunted to extinction in Switzerland in the early 20th century. Occasional bears from Italy now cross into southern Graubünden, though they rarely stay long and remain controversial. The alpine ibex, Capra ibex, represents one of conservation's success stories. By the early 19th century, ibex had been hunted to extinction in Switzerland. They survived only in Gran Paradiso in Italy. Reintroduction efforts beginning in 1906, sometimes involving smuggling animals from Italy, were successful. Today, about 17,000 ibex live in the Swiss Alps, their sure-footed climbing and distinctive curved horns making them an alpine icon. Chamois rupicapra, smaller relatives of ibex, are more numerous and widespread, numbering around 90,000. These agile creatures inhabit both forested and rocky terrain from middle to high elevations. Red deer and roe deer are common in forests and at forest edges. Wild boar populations have been increasing in recent decades, sometimes causing conflicts with agriculture. Marmots marmota, large ground squirrels, are common in alpine meadows. Their whistles serve as alarm calls, warning of approaching predators. They hibernate for up to 8 months of the year, surviving on fat reserves accumulated during the brief alpine summer. The lynx was reintroduced to Switzerland in the 1970s after being hunted to extinction in the 19th century. Current populations number around 200 to 300 individuals. These elusive cats prey primarily on roe deer and chamois. Wolves began naturally recolonizing Switzerland in the 1990s, expanding from Italy. By 2024, packs had established in several regions, though conflicts with sheep herders remain contentious and politically divisive. The Swiss population is estimated at several dozen animals, and their presence raises fundamental questions about coexistence with large predators in a densely populated, intensively used landscape. Bird life is diverse, with over 400 species recorded in Switzerland. The golden eagle Aquila crucidos is the king of alpine birds, with around 350 pairs nesting in the country. The bearded vulture Gypaetus barbatus, once extinct in the Alps, has been successfully reintroduced, and small numbers now soar over Swiss mountains. These massive birds, with wingspans up to 2.8 meters, feed primarily on bones, which they drop from height to break open and access the marrow. Conservation and environmental protection. Switzerland has a strong tradition of environmental protection, dating back to early conservation movements in the 19th century and codified in numerous laws and regulations. Protected areas. The Swiss National Park in the Lower Engadin, Graubünden, remains the country's only national park in the strict sense, where nature is left to develop without human intervention, except for research and marked hiking trails. Covering 170 square kilometers, it provides invaluable insights into natural ecological processes and serves as a wilderness experience in a heavily humanized landscape. Beyond the national park, Switzerland has established numerous regional nature parks, currently 20, which follow a different model. These parks, often much larger than the national park, seek to balance nature conservation with sustainable economic development, supporting traditional land use practices while protecting landscapes and biodiversity. Additionally, Switzerland has designated numerous nature reserves, protected landscapes, and wildlife sanctuaries at federal, cantonal, and local levels. Together, protected areas cover about 19% of Switzerland's territory, though the degree of protection varies considerably. Several Swiss natural sites have received UNESCO World Heritage status, recognizing their global significance. The Jungfraujoch area, the first natural site in the Alps, the Monte San Giorgio fossil beds, the tectonic arena of the Sardona region, and the ancient beech forests of the Jura. Environmental challenges. Despite its clean, green image, Switzerland faces significant environmental challenges. Agricultural intensification has reduced biodiversity in lowland areas. Many meadows that once supported diverse wildflower communities are now intensively fertilized and cut multiple times per year, leaving little time for flowers to bloom or insects to breed. Nitrogen deposition from agriculture and transportation affects even remote alpine areas, changing plant communities and soil chemistry. Air pollution, while much improved from the 1980s, still impacts forests and human health, particularly in urban areas and major transit corridors. Invasive species pose growing challenges. Plants like goldenrod, Japanese knotweed, and giant hogweed spread aggressively, while animals like the Asian tiger mosquito have established in southern Switzerland. Climate change is likely to exacerbate these problems, as milder conditions allow more exotic species to survive. Urban sprawl continues to consume agricultural land and natural areas, despite regulations designed to control it. Switzerland loses several square kilometers of open land to development each year, fragmenting habitats and increasing pressure on remaining natural areas. However, Switzerland has also achieved significant environmental successes. Water quality in rivers and lakes has improved dramatically since the 1970s, when many water bodies suffered from severe pollution and eutrophication. Fish populations have recovered in many waters. Air quality has improved substantially through vehicle emission standards and industrial controls. Forests are generally healthy and expanding in area. Recycling rates are among the world's highest. Water resources and management. As Europe's water tower, Switzerland takes water management seriously. The country has abundant water resources. Approximately 40% of Europe's freshwater reserves originate in the Alps. Annual precipitation averages 1,500, with higher amounts in the Alps. Switzerland uses only about 2% of its available water resources, a remarkably low figure reflecting both abundance and efficient use. Most water, 70%, goes to public supply, with industry using about 20% and agriculture 10%. The country has invested heavily in water infrastructure, with virtually 100% of the population connected to clean water supply and wastewater treatment. Hydropower is the country's largest renewable energy source, with over 1,000 hydropower plants generating about 60% of Switzerland's electricity. The largest installations are storage plants in the Alps, where dams create large reservoirs that can release water when electricity demand is high. Pumped storage facilities, which pump water uphill when electricity is cheap and release it through turbines when demand is high, help balance the electrical grid and integrate intermittent renewable sources like solar and wind. However, water resource management faces challenges. Climate change is altering the timing and amount of runoff, with more coming in winter and spring, less in late summer and fall when it's most needed. Glacial retreat is reducing long-term water storage. Conflicts arise between hydropower production, environmental protection, requiring adequate flows for fish and aquatic ecosystems and other water uses. Conclusion: a landscape of superlative Switzerland's geography is a study in contrasts and superlatives. From Europe's lowest point to its highest peaks, from continental dry valleys to rain-drenched alpine slopes, from Mediterranean palms to Arctic alpine tundra, this small country encompasses remarkable diversity. This geography has profoundly shaped Swiss history, culture, and identity. The mountains provided protection, but also isolation, encouraging local autonomy while making central control difficult. Factors that contributed to Switzerland's federal structure. The challenging terrain demanded cooperation and careful resource management, fostering a culture of pragmatism and consensus. The spectacular landscapes inspired a tourism industry that remains central to the economy and Swiss identity. Today, Switzerland's natural environment faces pressures from climate change, population growth, and economic development. Yet the country's strong environmental consciousness, born partly from the recognition that the landscape is both a precious heritage and an economic asset, provides grounds for optimism. The snow-capped peaks, green valleys, and blue lakes that have captivated visitors for centuries remain largely intact, a testament to Swiss stewardship of this extraordinary mountain country at the heart of Europe. The challenge for coming generations will be to maintain this landscape's beauty and ecological health, while adapting to rapid environmental change and accommodating the needs of a modern, prosperous society. If history is any guide, the Swiss will meet this challenge with their characteristic blend of pragmatism, innovation, and respect for their extraordinary natural heritage. That's the end. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel.